There's this show called Complete Theatrical Peninsula, and for a while it was actually heat, but over the years it got full of itself and became less and less bearable to watch. But the first few seasons are still timeless. It's about some psycho named Chad who hates to see anyone have a good time. He hosts this dumbass Survivor ripoff for teens, and there's already problems in the first episode. Like, all the kids are said to be 16 here, so how the fuck are they signing over basically all their rights as a human being? Shouldn't there be a parent or guardian doing that? There's even someone with an untreated mental disorder who they just let compete like any other contestant. Like, I can't even get in the military because I'm bipolar. There's gotta be some kind of laws against this. There's even a kid on probation whose probation officer is completely fine with this for some reason. Maybe he sent him to this fucking place so he could straighten him up. Turns out it made him more of a psychopath. As of contestants, there's a bunch of nobodies, and I'm not going over any of them. Just understand, if I didn't go over them at least briefly, they're nobody worth remembering. There's this emo who's real as fuck, because she realizes everybody else is a dumbass who doesn't deserve respect. She also has a lame-ass husband no one cares about. There's this ex-felon who doesn't respect human life in general, let alone any of the other island lames. He even stands up to Chad. He's real as fuck because he isn't with the shits and is often the voice of reason until the later seasons. There's this gay Canadian who sucks at life in general, but he wins the first season somehow and then never gets paid, and then competes in like 3 seasons after that and still never gets paid. He even appears in the Bonkers Ethnicity spin-off for some reason, accompanied by one of the worst contestants in the whole franchise. There's this lame who thinks he's smarter than everybody, even though he's not, and he's also a pussy. He doesn't do anything useful. I respect him in the fact that he doesn't give any of the other goofies at camp even the time of day, but at least the convict and emo contributed to their worthless teams, while this lame-ass nerd makes everything worse. There's a bunch of other contestants, like some dumb blonde and her lame-ass wannabe athlete boyfriend. Both of them are worthless and should have been the first and second to go, I don't care in what order. There's this dude everyone has a hard-on for, but most importantly, there's the main character, Feather, who makes it her goal to snake everyone out she can, though appear as their friends. She kicks out a bunch of randos almost single-handedly just from her position of power, so everyone else is trembling in fear. Naturally, everybody sees her as an op, but this is another problem with the show. The whole team would have realistically just voted for her because she's a op, but they choose to deal with her nonsense and kick out players who actually contribute. The worst part about it is that when she was actually kicked out, she wasn't even voted out. It was because she lost a challenge. The grand prize for all this bullshit is $100,000, which really isn't a lot. Like, some of these people's hospital bills are more than that. It's still a classic though. It was mostly enjoyed by people who were already in middle and high school. But see, Complete Theatrical Peninsula was originally aired in Canada alongside other shows for adolescents. But when it was aired in the US, it was aired along shows for infants, nowhere near its intended target audience. But when season 2 came out, there was already a lot of disappointment. For instance, the cast was split in half, so already that's lame. And they only brought back the semi-cool ones, or at least I hoped, until I saw their chosen cast. Like, check this out. They made Ryan Reynolds the villain. With his hot powers, he seduced Chad's personal chef into giving him slack on harder challenges. But he's also kicked off too early to remember him, and he will never be seen again. Everybody else has some lame-ass storylines that I can hardly remember, so I'm pretty sure nothing of importance actually happened. If that wasn't bad enough, I had to watch the ex-felon get an L handed to him by the lamest character in the whole series. Season 3 was one of those series that had a lot of mixed opinions. We can generally agree which seasons are trash and which ones are watchable, but this one and season 5 apparently are debatable. I didn't like season 3 at all. It was trash. I thought the song concept was lame and cringy and took away from whatever amount of seriousness I was taking the show at that point. They introduced two new lames. One of them was a super fan who stalked Cody. It wasn't funny, it was just creepy and actually made me feel bad for him. Sure, this motherfucker was simping hella hard for the emo, but we can't blame him. Besides, the extents that the superfan went to were way more extreme and honestly just scared me at some point. Like the fact that she kept track of when he slept and had his address and personal information. That would have made anyone want to file a restraining order. She doesn't even have any redeeming qualities. The only thing that she did for the plot was make Cody feel uncomfortable. There's some other hot dude named Jose who turns out to be even more of an op than Feather. But then the two ops fall in love, and that's not good for anyone. I never hated Feather to begin with, but a lot of people hated her guts, and they even wanted her to win because of what Jose was doing. They also bring back the lame ass nerd, because apparently getting voted off third wasn't enough screen time. I hated him still, but a little less. Apparently the emo and the ex-felon also hooked up in this season. A lot of people were pressed at the emo because the ex-felon had a wife. But my question is, why isn't anyone mad at the ex-felon for cheating on his wife? To top the shit cake, this also was the season that made that lame-ass homeschool kid who got kicked out first for not knowing how to act around other human beings turn into a wild animal, which was a problem for everyone in the later seasons. For season 4 though, instead of bringing back more washed up contestants that have been through enough, they make 14 even lamer ones. There's this jock who's dumb as a box of rocks, but somehow still wins in one of the endings, even though everybody knows survival is a mind game. Oh yeah, every season has 2 endings, so you can see both finalists take the W. There's also this girl jock who's fine. I don't have any problems with her, but for some reason the boy jock always confuses her for a guy, which mistaking that for like the first time is kinda understandable, but he does this throughout the whole season, so it's just plain incompetence at this point. There's this guy named Mark who, despite having one personality trait, has multiple personality disorder. He has them in check for the most part, but tries to hide them from his wife. There's also this redhead op from Idaho who's responsible for kicking out one of the most popular players with the least screen time. I liked him. He was pretty good of an op in my opinion. Not as good as Jose, but almost as good, but still better than Feather. Hella people liked the magic girl, and she was okay, but she was scary because she could basically just tell who you were just by sensing you, which is absolutely terrifying. Everybody else is worthless. There's this nerd who wins, and a lot of people like him, but he's nothing special. Season 5 is the worst season yet. They bring back all the Converse status players, but for some reason, most of these players aren't even Converse status, and then they split them into teams of good guys and bad guys, and for some reason, the emo is pressed about being on the bad guy team. Even worse, every character that I did like was ruined beyond redeemability. They're no longer characters but one-note songs over the whole season. They reduced the main op from season 4 to a comic relief. They even broke the ex-felon and made him go to actual prison. See, he was all pressed because he was put on the good guy team despite having charges, so he started wreaking havoc but failed, and eventually he went and burnt down the psycho's crib, which hurt him on the inside, so he called the feds in and had him sent off to actual prison. The only redeemable quality of this season was Op Mark. See, Mark is an old personality of Mark's that was stored away in his brain. The ex-felon actually went to jail with him, and he said he was a total psycho. And one day, Mark got hit in the head really hard with a rock, and then that made his old personality come out. He spent the majority of the season wreaking havoc because he's the op to top all ops. But for some reason, this show thought it was an anime for a second and made Mark and all his personalities go on an adventure inside of his brain to defeat Op Mark, and then real Mark wins, and apparently he no longer has multiple personality disorder because that's how it's cured, I guess. But it's alright, 'cause all the lames take an L at the end anyways. I honestly don't even want to talk about season 6. It gives me a headache just to think about. For this season, they decided to make a whole new cast, except these are the lamest of them all. There's this one guy who thinks that zombies are going to attack at any second, so he's always on his toes for the upcoming invasion. He has a wife from Australia, and she's honestly one of the only characters that I can even stand. Apparently, his constant 10 toes attitude about everything was good in the end because it made him win. There's these sisters, and the popular one hates the smart one. Well, they both hate each other, but the popular one goes out of her way to make the smart one's day worse. There's this fake-ass villain who thinks he's Dr. Doofenshmirtz or something, 'cause he's always making these try-hard-ass inventions, but they always fail and he gets in his feels. But as we know, nobody will ever be as cool as Dr. Doofenshmirtz. There's a princess, or at least I'm pretty sure she's an actual princess, like a Disney princess. All the animals treat her like one, and she has unnatural powers. There's this lame-ass nerd, and I know you guys are gonna get on me because I hated the last lame-ass nerd. But look, this dude is a little bitch. He gets pushed around constantly. He has a crush, but she's not with the gimmicks either. There's also this wannabe wizard who gets kicked out second and then makes a return on the bonkers ethnicity and then gets kicked out first. There's another superfan, and he's also painful to watch, but he just wants a job, so he's not as bad as the last one. Everybody else isn't worth remembering. And then shortly after, they made a spin-off, and I feel like the majority of people were really not going into this with the brightest hopes because of the last 3 seasons we were handed. It's called The Bonkers Ethnicity, and it's about like 40 something people all made into pairs running around the world, similar to in World Tour, but in this one they actually get it right. In every place they go, there's like a carpet they need to get to, and if you're the last one there, you're SOL, and they pick off teams until one of them wins. And Chad is no longer the host. He went to prison because of his terrorist acts, and they got a new host who actually respects other life forms other than himself. They are some lames, but for the most part, the lamest of the lames are kicked off first. They also made a complete meme out of the wannabe wizard, and also the fat Canadian and the first smartass nerd are on a team, and they're reality TV stars competing in dozens of shows. The nerd also has a wife, but then she divorces him, breaking him on the inside. After that, him and the Maple Man take L after L until they are finally booted. This show was actually heat. It was refreshing. I think partly because I went into it with absolutely no expectations for anything good. It absolutely blew my mind. But no, it's actually that good. And right when we had regained some sort of hope, they made Baby complete theatrical peninsula. I'm not totally against baby shows in general, like it worked for the Looney Tunes kinda, but this is just not a show that works for. They were already annoying teenagers. I'm not trying to see them as infants. Chad's personal chef works at a daycare where all the baby versions of the show live their lives. They mainly go on misadventures and doesn't keep a consistent plot line. This is very strange for a show that every season up to this point has literally been a continuous plot line. And from my experience, the majority of fans throw this to the side when on the subject of complete theatrical peninsula. Oh, and also, they teased a new season, which I am probably going to give a chance, but I am honestly not even sure what to think at this point. It hasn't been good in a long time, and the Bonkers Ethnicity spinoff was the best thing they've made in a while, so I think they should go on with that and completely ditch the island concept. Or they could take the bad ideas from the majority of what they've shit out and the good ideas from the Bonkers Ethnicity. Anyways, that's it. If you made it this far, you probably have a larger attention span than me, so I appreciate it.